When abuse and kindness are mixed together, it leads to a very emotionally confusing environment. So when you see Cassie looking fondly at Diddy or talking fondly about her experiences with him, that is not love. That is not affection. That is psychological confusion. That is manipulation. Welcome back to the channel. As always, I've missed you. I have a special video for you tonight. This is an impromptu video made out of frustration. Over the last week and a half or so, I have read a lot about the Diddy trial. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, video reactions, and I feel like the media is missing it. They're missing the boat on the relationship with Cassie. They're missing the boat on Diddy's psychological makeup. They're missing the boat on the freak-offs. And I just want to, from a psychologist standpoint, sort of give my perspective. If you're new to this channel, my name is David Colorosi. I'm a licensed psychologist, and I use events in pop culture to talk about psychological concepts. So let's get into it. All right, so we'll talk about the places in which the media, the reactors are getting it wrong. But first, please hit the like button, smash the like button, destroy the like button, whatever you want to do. It's good for the YouTube algorithm. Okay, the first thing I think people are getting wrong is this idea that Diddy is confident and comfortable in the courtroom. He's interacting with the lawyers. Seems like he's got a good relationship with them. He's engaged with them. He's making eye contact with the witnesses. He's making eye contact with the jurors. He just seems like he's happy in the courtroom. I read somewhere that it looked like he was in the recording studio, just sitting back, relaxed. Here's how I think about this. I can't diagnose from afar, but if we believe what has been shared so far in the court case, Diddy meets all of the diagnostic criteria for narcissism. He has a delusional sense of who he is. He's entitled. He's self-interested. He lacks empathy and compassion. He will exploit other people. He thinks that he's genuinely more important than other people. He's consumed with his own success and growth and requires a great deal of praise. All of those characteristics, which, by the way, are beyond selfishness, right? Someone who is selfish puts themselves first, but recognizes that others exist in the world. Someone who's a narcissist doesn't clock the fact that there are other people that they are affecting. There's just no interest, no thought about other people. Somebody who is a narcissist is that way because it is a maladaptive defense mechanism that's covering for a deep insecurity. They're so insecure that they can't tolerate it. So what they do is they create this alternative sense of self. They create this idea that they are great, that they are perfect, that they are more important than other people, because if they dealt with the fact that they had that level of insecurity, it will be crushing to them. And I think that's what's happening to Diddy in the courtroom. If he sits there and actually allows himself to think about where he's at in the world right now, what he's done, who he is, he would be devastated. So he's going to prop himself up with this idea, this delusional idea that he's more important than everybody in the courtroom, that he's special, that he can survive this, that it's going to all work out, that he should testify. Like, all of those things are just him protecting himself. At his core, I think he feels worthless, insecure, full of shame. This, by the way, is likely why Diddy reacted in such an explosive manner to the relationship between Cassie and Kid Cudi. It was a narcissistic injury. Diddy thought that he had Cassie under his thumb. He was able to exploit her and manipulate her, and all of that made him feel powerful. And then when he discovered that she had a relationship with somebody else, it pierced that veil. And he felt insecure, he felt shameful, he felt self-doubt, all those things. And in order to stop that pain, he had to explode. He had to break into his house, firebomb his car, react in a really intense way, lose control, because he couldn't deal with the fact that Cassie had chosen another man. Okay, the second take that I think is a big miss is this idea that Diddy is who he is because of power. People keep saying power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I think that's I'm trying to think of a better way to say it, but I think it's a stupid take. There are a lot of powerful people who are not victimizing others, abusing others, exploiting others, trafficking others. That behavior, Diddy's behavior, in my opinion, is a consequence of trauma. What we know about Diddy's childhood is that his father was killed in a drug deal when he was 2 or 3. Diddy was raised by his mom, who was working 3 or 4 jobs. Diddy was in a rough area alone. He almost certainly felt insecure, vulnerable, weak. He had no agency in his life. So what he did was he hustled, he worked, and he's looking around trying to figure out, how do I make it in this world? And I would bet that in that environment, he saw drugs being powerful, sex being powerful, money being powerful, violence, weapons being powerful. And now you have a man wielding those things in a horrific way to elevate himself. These parties, the treatment of Cassie, the use of drugs, all of these things elevate Diddy, because I think at his core, he doesn't feel like he's worth anything. So it's not the power that corrupts. It's the trauma that hasn't been treated. It's the kid that wasn't supported. It's the man that is deeply insecure. That corrupts. Okay, the last thing the media is getting wrong, I think, is the most important. It's the one I'm the most passionate about. It's Cassie. If you listen to Cassie's testimony, she talks about incredible abuse, incredible trauma at the hands of Diddy. But she also talks about having affection for him, having loved him. You know, she mentions being raped by him and then talks about returning to his bed later. And I think that the media hears that and goes, okay, so it wasn't all that bad. Okay, you know, he was abusing her, but they still had a close connection. And I think that's a miss. This connection that we're talking about is a trauma bond. If you think about an abusive relationship, it's an intimate experience, negative but intimate. Let me explain. If you are the abuser, for the most part, you have engaged in the behavior that is the worst thing you could imagine ever doing. You have hurt the person that you love. You've lost control. You've violated the relationship. You feel worthless. You feel helpless against yourself. You feel shame, self-doubt, insecurity. It's a devastating experience. Because it's so devastating, abusers, after the emotions are regulated, they come back oftentimes and they say, I'm sorry, right? I'm going to go to therapy. I'm going to do all the things. They love bomb. They give gifts. That part of the abuse cycle is done genuinely. When we talk about it in pop culture, we think that the abuser wants to abuse and is love bombing to manipulate so that they can abuse again. But from a psychological standpoint, that's not the mechanism at play. The abuser feels bad, really wants to change, thinks that they're going to change, and then doesn't. So in that moment, after having abused somebody, the abuser feels totally unlovable, and yet their partner stays with them. That creates a connection. And obviously the person who was abused is in an exceptionally vulnerable position. They are physically minimized, they are beaten, they are hurt, they are damaged, they are thinking back through their own behavior and blaming themselves for things that they shouldn't. They're wondering why anybody would be with them. They're thinking about how they're going to change their behavior in the future. They have incredible self-doubt, incredible insecurity, and they feel unlovable. And yet the abuser stays with them. When abuse and kindness are mixed together, it leads to a very emotionally confusing environment. So when you see Cassie, looking fondly at Diddy or talking fondly about her experiences with him, that is not love. That is not affection. That is psychological confusion. That is manipulation. It doesn't mean that it was consensual and no big deal. Quite the opposite. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for listening.